a joint workshop.
Oh boy!
From Stephen and JD.
Oh.
So let me read the intro here. They've been really nicely set up. So Stephen August is the author of Vegans versus the Verses, and you can actually take a look at the book. Where did it go?
Here it is. Very good book.
There we go. For the last 7 years, Steve has been our go-to guy at the Cube of Truth for anything Christian.
And just 1 second, every time you guys see any on Facebook post or something, I try to link the Amazon for Steve to sell more of these, and so the message will go. So if you all do it, it will be there.
JD Mumma has deep knowledge in several of the areas we'll be covering tonight: rhetoric, influence and persuasion, epistemology, fallacies, subconscious biases, negative apologetics, and body language.
What does all that mean?
Well, JD will be able to tell you.
Oh no, yeah, that's good. Yeah, yeah.
JD and
A sitting ovation. You guys are too kind. Alright. Well,
He reads mine.
you started to do the wave. Thank you. It failed miserably. Alright. JD, me. Should I give him a brief idea of what we've got going on here?
Absolutely.
JD and I got together, we thought, what can we do that's going to be fun for this group, that's going to be a little bit different, because you all heard us talk many times before, and like he was doing with JD, the way he uses big words, we don't need to snooze. So, what?
More.
All right, Mo's going to give me background music, right on. So what we were discussing, JD and I, is a recent debate that was had on YouTube by Joey Carbstrong and this dude here, Tristan Tate. Does anybody know who that was, or what that debate
Or
was?
who doesn't know who Tristan Tate is, or his brother Andrew Tate? Anybody not?
I think that
Joey Carbstrong, a lot of us here are probably familiar with guys like Earthling Ed. He's so popular, just about everybody knows. When it comes to YouTube, vegan, influencer, Earthling Ed's pretty much the top of the game right now, okay? He is so underneath him would be probably Joey Carbstrong in popularity. Joey has a great attitude about him because he's kind of one of those, he's like a guy's guy. He doesn't take crap. You know how Earthling Ed is like, you know, very kind and gentle? Joey's like, screw you, jerk. He's more towards the Gary Urofsky kind than he is the Earthling Ed. So everybody was hoping that when he did this discussion, as they're going to call it, with this gentleman right here, who's a very good-looking gentleman. Not as good-looking as Trench, but still good-looking.
No, nobody's that hot.
So, the vegan community was really excited for this discussion, this debate. It didn't quite go so well for Joey. I noticed something in the debate that I think I could have squelched it right at the beginning. And that was that this guy here introduced himself as an Orthodox Christian. That's when I got in touch with JD, because I said, since he is like the opposite side, okay, I'm the Christian, he's the atheist, I'm like, wouldn't it be great to look at what these guys do and approach it from our two different points of view so that you guys could decide what you think would work and use it yourself, right? Now you tell me a little bit about Tristan.
Okay, so he's the lesser of the two brothers. Andrew Tate is the main character. Maybe he gets 60% on the chart here. So they're both former MMA fighters, and they have a view in their mind of macho men are strong, tough, badass guys. They were recently thrown in jail in Romania on charges of sex trafficking, which I'm guessing is probably going to stick. So he's had tapes about him talking about how he ruined this city because he fucked all the women. So this is, you know, braggadocious out of his house. And his behavior, he's going to sit there and smoke a cigar and sit like he's the big macho guy. He calls himself the talisman, which is like a piece of jewelry that has special powers to help people. And so he really thinks very highly of himself. He's a serious manipulator, con artist. I can go through a long list, but we'll get to that later. And so there's a lot of tactics and what?
Why are they famous? Like, what do they have?
Mixed martial arts.
Well, initially mixed martial arts, but then they learned how easy it is to manipulate
Your audience.
Their audience, their marks, as a con artist would call it, in that there was a lot of men out there that were lost. Sort of like, if any of you have heard of Jordan Peterson, he has a large male following. And he's another manipulator. I shouldn't really use the term manipulator. He uses a lot of manipulative techniques that his audience doesn't know. And possibly he doesn't know that he's using either.
I think he's presenting himself as a real man's man to a lot of people who are looking for that kind of a role model right now.
So there's several tactics that he's using, but the confidence tactic is the main one. And so that's where the word con man comes from, confidence. Do you have confidence in me that I could take your watch and return it? Was the original guy. So we're going to play a little, we're not going to, the video itself is about an hour and a half, but we're not going to go through that. We're going to kind of stick to the beginning here and we can play more. Him and I have spent 2 days, not full days, but together trying to figure this out, how we can merge and
That was the night I
tag
came
team.
home crying.
So we'll play this and then have some pauses and discuss from his biblical perspective, Christian perspective. I also have a Christian perspective background as well. And I've tried to help simplify this so that we can all learn this. And so ready to go?
I'm ready to go. And you guys don't think you're going to get out of this because we're going to ask you what you think about where the Joey Carbstrong dropped the ball, how this guy succeeded, or even if you feel opposite, that's cool too. So hit play and let's start from the beginning.
The Joey guy is so respectful and normal seemingly.
So this is his initial setup. He's manipulating us already.
Let's have him on the podcast and let's see what he thinks, or what he wants me to think, or what he wants everyone in the world who eats meat to think. So you never know, at the end of this podcast I may declare myself a vegan. I don't know. I've done no debate preparation because
He's at this point pretending that he's going to be dialectic, meaning that they both are going to try to seek the truth. The opposite of being dialectic is heuristic. He already knows he's going to be combative. He already knows he's not going to change his mind. But he's going to present to the audience, I'm a very open-minded person. Yeah, let's see what you got. Bullshit.
Yeah, right from there, did you get the impression he would be open, he would be receiving? Okay. He's trying to portray that.
Yeah. So, but his audience, remember, is...
And again, I think if I remember right, 75,000 people were watching this. That's a whole lot more people than we ever talked to in a cube in a single.
Well, that's what he's telling us. He's not sharing the screen with us.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
veganism isn't something that I study or prepare for.
it's more bullshit.
No.
This is from Tristan
Okay,
Tate.
pause.
See, Tate the Talisman. Veganism is banned in my house. Later on, he's going to say, I have no problem with people being vegan. So my concern and part of how Joey Carbstrong does, he didn't really do any Oppo research. He knew that this was a major platform for him to be on, and later on he's just, thank you so much for being on your platform. Like, he should have done his research and found out how this guy really thinks and how he portrays vegans, and called him out on it, right on the, you're saying this, but this is what your social media is saying.
So you guys were right when you said you didn't believe him. This is the kind of stuff he really felt. What he said prior was just setting up everybody for a lie. Hit it.
The problem with people that are gullible and easily manipulated and all that, they don't track. So you can just throw anything in the moment and they're like, okay, this is what's going on
They
now.
don't fact check.
Correct as well.
Do you hold any religious beliefs before we start? That'd be interesting.
So right now he's setting up a binary. He's setting up a binary that I'm in the in group and you're in the out group, because he already knows probably that Joey Carbstrong is not, because later he's going to say, why should I listen to anybody who's not a Christian? So that binary gets set up.
And also, let's look at the dynamic that the audience is seeing. We've got this guy, mega rich guy, okay? the colors, the brightness, everything here just exudes power
polished.
and confidence and, you know, with the accent. All these things make him look super good. Joey looks like he's in a Motel 6 bed.
Exactly, yeah.
And already, I'm sure that Joey's sitting here is looking at this going, visually, I've already lost the game. That's kind of tough.
For the average people who follow
Yeah.
him, yeah.
And again, with that huge YouTube live audience that's watching this, he already knows that he's already lost a couple steps on his importance.
So in the beginning, he wants to portray that Joey, he's singling out as one of the good vegans. I'm not sure if I had it in the clip here or not, but he's going to say, you know, your people trolled me online, but I can handle it, I'm a tough guy. So he's already setting up this hasty generalization, just generalizing the vegans as a bunch of trolls, but this one guy, you know, he's good, I'll have him on here. And this is not relevant to the conversation at this point, but he's going to try to make it relevant. And so Joey could have turned around and said, tell me about your silk shirt. He's like, well, what do you mean my silk shirt? What does that have to do with it? Exactly, what does your question have to do with our conversation? And so right away, putting him on his back foot, that he now has made a statement that's not relevant. Or give me the relevance, because if we're going to talk about, they're going to talk about the shirt I'm wearing, how I got my hair cut, what are we going to talk about? So already he's taken the lead here. And he wants to basically he's gathering information, which is what we need to do when we talk to people. The more we can gather, the more rope that they're going to pull out to hang themselves. The more they're going to show their cards of their house of cards. But typically people don't interview. They come in, I'm going to tell you what to think. I'm going to tell you this is abuse. You need to decide now that you're an abuser or not. Like we narrow them down rather than, if we can gather more information, now we have the upper hand. So this is what he's doing. Joey's not gathering information at this point. And he's also what's called poisoning the well. So when ahead of time you can poison the well, and that you're already putting people as bad.
Yeah. He said, are you a religious person or are you an atheist? As if he only gave Joey two choices.
Yeah.
Right. Okay? Now Joey is not really familiar with Bible junk like I am and some of you guys are and a lot of the vegan Christians out there are. But since Joey's not, it automatically put Joey in a position to where he has to now defend himself with one of the two binaries. Even though there could be more, there could be other things. Or, so you could have come back and said, how is that relevant? Or if it was somebody like me, I would have came by with some more defense, which I'll share with you when we get later on into the video.
And he could have also pinned him down as to that there are many types of religious people out there and they don't always agree. And so I understand that you might be trying to set up a binary here, that I'm in the out group and that you're in the in group. You can just call it straight out, that this is his tactic he's using. I mean, he's pretending that, I'm just being curious. No, you're not.
I don't claim to know everything about the universe. I'm more agnostic. I don't know. It would be interesting.
So, notice his body language. Notice Joey's body language when he gets asked this question. Did anybody notice his body language, by the way? What?
Kind of shrugged a little bit.
But he's always like this.
Not
He's
later.
kind of like that.
Not later. You'll see what he does that shows his stress.
Do you hold any religious beliefs before we start? That would be interesting.
Lick the lips.
See.
He's going to scratch his arm. He's going to lean back. He's going to take a deep breath. And he's going to look off the camera. Those are all signs that he now is stammering.
No, it could be also something that he says, oh, that again.
No,
But he wouldn't do all of those
Doing
things.
this again.
He wouldn't do all those things because if you look at other footage, you see
Okay.
how he leans into the mic, how he comes forward, all of
Okay,
that.
it could be
Or you
that,
make-
but I don't get that. Do you guys get the impression that he's thinking or like he's like...
He seems nervous.
You'll
I think
also,
he's like,
you'll see his eyes darting around. when he looks away. It's like, you know, he is searching. Yeah, I mean, this isn't a bashing of Joey seminar. This is just noticing that not only our words are being communicated, but to the audience and to Tristan, psychologically, subconsciously, we're also seeing the micro-expressions and the body language.
I don't claim to know everything about the universe. I'm more agnostic. I don't know, but I do lean towards. It's a very bizarre world we live in, and it's very hard for me to come to terms with it being a cosmic accident. But I understand, because I feel like a lot of the hard lines that people are scared of debating.
So he's already hard line, and that there's two sides.
These days, I mean, there's lots of different debates on LGBTQ rights in the community, etc. And people who are, for example, Muslims will have their hard lines on it and say, well, my religious belief is this, you shouldn't be questioning my religious belief.
Now he set up that, how dare you, as a non-Christian, tell me what to do. So later on he's going to say, well, I just don't care. He's going to use the selfish reasons. But right now, so he's setting up that he's going to use what in rhetoric, there's the pathos, ethos, and logos. Logos being logic, ethos being authority. And this is, who was the guy that came up with this thousands of years ago? Aristotle. And so he came up with three. I have, I think, 8 that added. One major one added to that is social. We use a lot of social to influence people. And so he's right now using ethos, which is authority. So the authority of the Bible, how dare you? This is the authority. You're not a part of the in-group, so you can't criticize us.
I myself am an Orthodox Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in the word of the Bible. And the Bible makes...
Okay, so he's got how many so far?
Okay, he started out with, he's an Orthodox Christian, he believes in the Bible, he believes in Jesus Christ. What else?
It's very, very clear that man has dominion over animals. It tells us which animals we can and which animals we can't eat. And I don't understand how any man could argue with a Christian about that. If I say God's word is final, where would you come in and oppose me?
So who would have a... I'd like to ask the audience what their perspective is before you go for it, just to see who has an argument against them.
I would ask him what God's original diet was, what God's original plan for us was.
Great.
I always go with what Stephen says. Where does it say that in the Bible? And then they're stumped right then and there.
And then, what about it was only good, God only said it was good when everybody was vegan, living in the Garden of Eden. Like, he never ever said in any other book ever that it was good.
You guys are rocking.
Yes,
somebody's
would
been
God
reading.
make slaughterhouses?
Yes.
I would say based on his criminal charges, he doesn't follow the Bible to a T.
Oh no.
So, I mean, he's just picking and choosing at that point.
Yeah. So, but would you go directly after him with that? Or another approach
Well,
might
maybe
be
not say that directly, but say, do you follow everything to the T?
Follow everything to the T as far as the diet goes, or just the other laws?
In terms
No,
of
just
Christianity,
religion.
and what you're told to do in that religion.
All right.
Because I think the answer would obviously be no, for most people.
Because there are a lot of religious people pick and choose the religious acts that they want to follow.
Yeah. So,
Say some religions are like no pork and
I don't
no
think it ever
this
says you
or-
need to eat meat. It says you're allowed to. There's a difference,
And I would also
So you would go back onto the authority. Where in this authority would you find support for that claim?
Well, I guess I kind of brought up 2 different defenses. Like, the one is, do you follow everything to a T? And the other one would be like, you're not required to, but you are allowed to. Those
I
are
think the trap for people like that would be, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, to take the line that Robert said, if you would try even to lead them to the dominion part, because that's what usually the brain goes into, we have dominions over them. And then at the same time you tell them that the first 10 generations, the 250 years that were vegan, and the afterlife vision, whatever it's called, and the sheep would go with the lamb and all this, that's also vegan. So if the beginning and the end with the dominion part means vegan, how can you claim that, and then they'll fall for that trap? Something of the sort.
I used to, before talking to Stephen, this whole precise side of the conversation, I used to just say, why do you take the Bible as the complete authority? why do Christians believe in the Bible? Why do Muslims believe in Torah? And like, it's almost arbitrary. But when I did that before, then the conversation completely got away from veganism. It all went into religious, and it didn't get us anywhere. So I do think it's a valid question to ask. However, with the idea of pushing veganism, there's better ways to answer that, which is what we learned from Stephen. I'd be interested to hear what else we can learn here, I guess.
Part of the problem with what he just said was he laid down so many claims. The dominion, what was the list of the things that he said? Dominion. He said orthodox. He said several
Specific
things
rules.
that would require a different answer. And to answer all of those, we could spend an hour, and Joey didn't have that much time to even do that if he had even known. So what I would do is I would just start him at the very beginning of what he said. When he said he is an Orthodox Christian. What does Orthodox mean? All right, you guys that know me know that my past, I was a juggler. Okay, for me to say I juggle, well, I could take 3 balls and throw them in the air, and I'm a juggler. All right? But if I said I'm a professional juggler and all I did was 3, you'd go, okay, that's not so great. You come see my show and you see me juggling 7 things on fire and a chainsaw, you go, he's a professional. Well, when he said Orthodox Christian, he didn't just say I'm a Christian. He said I'm an Orthodox Christian. He set him up to be a professional Christian with that comment. So as a professional, now I know my boundaries that I can deal with, which means if I bring up Scripture, I'm going to assume he knows it. I'm going to assume he can juggle 7 balls. Do you see what I mean? He's up at this level is what he's projecting himself to me as. Now, I probably wouldn't do it if I was talking to the average, when we're out doing cube. If somebody says something, I would go to the defense, I think you said, it's like, where in the Bible does it say that? That's my first, let's say, layperson defense or question, because for the most part, they don't know. They've heard it. They put their faith in their pastors, they put their faith in their parents and their teachers and their friends or their rabbis, whoever they had around them who were people of authority, and believed them. I believed them for many, many years before I went vegan. All right? So it's not that they're bad, they just heard it, they don't know where they heard it, but they believe it. We all know that's true from when we do regular typical vegan outreach, even if it's not a Bible stuff. Yeah?
I have a thought. When you ask them what verse is this in the Bible, and they don't have an answer, I feel like that would immediately put them on the defense, or as if they're not knowing whatever, versus what I do, which is, I ask them a question, and I said, in the Garden of Eden, where there was no sin and no death, do you know who was created as a companion for Adam?
That's a good
and
Before Eve. Who?
Before Eve, and it's animals, and that would be, I feel like that's just more of a education, versus when you ask them what verse it is.
Okay.
They get defensive.
So you're asking a leading question.
Yeah.
Yeah, or a loaded question,
and I just,
actually, because you already know
I
the
just
answer.
thought of this, so I'm
Yeah.
now asking you guys if there's a difference, or do you see the difference between how they would get defensive or
I can see them
lost or
getting
whatever,
I get what you're saying.
versus
It's
educated.
like you're calling them out. Like
You're calling them out,
Yeah.
but
You are.
they're also
We are, but-
misrepresenting
You are.
But
Scripture.
what I'm
by
asking,
saying that.
which approach is going to be more beneficial?
See, that's why I'm asking, when you said that and you said that and you said, those are all valid. I mean, which approach, we don't know which approach is going to work because we don't know the person.
Right.
It's everybody
That's
has
why interviewing them is key.
Yeah.
The more you can gather information from them, the more you can figure out which tool in your toolbox.
Also, in this situation, unlike when we're at the Cube, it's actually not about Joey converting Tristan into a vegan. It's about the audience. So it's not necessarily about what's most effective with him being on the defensive. It's about what's going to present, and be the most susceptible, absorbable for the audience.
Yeah, I mean, you can make him look like a clown here because he presents himself on this high authority macho bullshit thing, and you can just call him out on his. So the tactic he's using is what's called a Gish gallop, and Gish was the last name of a Christian apologist. So apologist means like you're a promoter, you're out there. It's oftentimes
speaks in defense of a
topic. Yeah, it's mostly used in the Christian world, Christian apologetics, Christian apologists. So Gish, his tactic would be to this and this and this and this and this. It's if you've ever watched Ben Shapiro uses the same tactic. He talks very fast and rapidly, lays out a bunch of arguments, and you can't. What you have to do with those people, I can take those one at a time. Maybe as somebody who can't keep track of all those, I would have also had a pen and paper with this guy and tracked what he was saying. Not just relied on my memory. I would have said, I need to take a note here and slow him down. He's going to try to rapid fire his tactic. So when you say that you follow Jesus, then I would ask him a question of what type of a Christian he is. So this sets up the trap. So this sets up, on a game of chess, I'm going to make a bunch of moves that limits their moves. And so I'm going to ask him if he's a Christist, a Christologist, or a Christian. And so the ending on those words, we just came up with this. So the ist on the end means a belief in. The ologist is the study of, ology, psychology, and the IAN on the end means the practice. So I want to know, Mr. Orthodox Christian, because the IAN on the end of that word means that, like a magician, a guardian, a musician, an electrician, you actually don't just read about this character, this person. You don't actually just know that they exist, but you follow their behavior. You're trying to model and be like them. So tell me more about that. And so the more I didn't, because later on I'm going to use this against him. Because I'm laying out, are you just somebody who's saying, I'm a Christian, like a lot of people do, but they're more what I would call Biblians. They just parrot the Bible. They're not actually acting, behaving, modeling Christ's behavior. So which I would also at that point set up, tell me what the behaviors that you think are Christ. And so then I would set up a list and go down, and he would say, probably did, so he would go down his list.
So you're going on fact-finding. I'm going to meet him, I would meet him differently, because I'd meet him where he sat by saying he's the Orthodox Christian. He knows his way around the Bible. I would then start dealing with scriptures, because that's kind of just fun for me. But what he's going to do is a much easier way for you guys who don't have, 55 years of Bible study memorized like I do, to where you can spit out a lot of verses. So even though I have my way of doing it, his way of wearing it down and checking the water, finding out who you're talking to and what the parameters, what he means by Christian, or just somebody who studies God, Christologist, or a Christist who knows of God, that's going to help you determine how you go farther with this. But
he's trying to set me that I'm in the out group. What I'm going to do is show him that he's in the out group. Because I'm going to ask, was Jesus peaceful or violent? Was he an active participant in doing stuff? Which will come up later.
Which is good, because that's what Joey could have done. If Joey doesn't know his way around the Bible, he could have just said, I don't know, whatever you want to say.
So name some characters.
Name some characteristics
of Jesus.
So
Compassionate.
Versus, and I would put up the verses maybe, right? Versus apathetic, right? So now we're setting up the contrast. Where do you fit in here? Because later on, I've watched the video, I know he's gonna, I just don't care. I go, okay, that's not Jesus. Okay, I'm seeing a bunch of behavior. You call yourself a Christian, but you can't even qualify based on, I would narrow him down and realize, you know what? Actually, I'm the one who acts more like Jesus than you. And I don't even believe in the guy. Right? So love, caring, compassion, empathy, joyfulness, forbearance, which is like holding yourself back, having self-control, which obviously he doesn't. Kindness, empathy.
How do you call that? Forbearance? What?
Forbearance.
Well,
yeah, it's actually there in the Bible.
And I would meet him with scripture saying, all right, according to Galatians, the Apostle Paul said in chapter 5 that the fruit of the Spirit, what people are going to see when they look at you, if you're a Christian, is love, joy, patience, mercy, kindness, forbearance, forgiveness. These are all the things that people are going to see in your life.
Yeah.
Are they going to see that in you when you pay people to hang animals upside down and slit their throats? See what I mean? If I'm gonna meet him with that aggressive orthodox thing, if I'm gonna meet him at that level, that's what I would say.
So you eat meat because God told you it's okay? Is that
for you guys again?
Oh, I think that was, yeah.
No, I never said that before. No, I love meat. I absolutely love meat, and I don't feel any.
So what did he switch to?
He loves meat.
He switched from the ethos?
Any duty towards the animals that are killed for my meat.
Okay, a couple cuts in there. So he now has shifted from the authority of the book, the Bible, the moral authority, to self. So I would call him out on that. Now you're so before your authority was the Bible, and now you're shifting to your own pleasure, and now you're including the word love. So, because that seems kind of weird, because what's the word? Philia, necrophilia. So necro is dead animals, and philia is the attraction of. That's like loving the dead. I'm like, so I just want to get clear here, but for his audience.
No, but for the audience it will do the opposite. That they feel like him, and you tell them they're necrophiles or whatever you call it, and they'll be, oh, hell, we don't want to listen to this guy.
Yeah. No, I'm not calling him a necrophiliac. I'm just saying that, there's a word it's usually used for people that have sex with, but technically, but words in our vernacular aren't always of that. So, but technically, you're dealing with that. You're telling me that you're loving a rotting corpse.
I think he's talking about he likes the taste.
Yeah. So he'll go. Yeah, I love the taste. And I would say, so tell me, what is that taste? Do you know which of the taste buds that is? He doesn't. He doesn't have a clue. So I'm going to say, is it salt, sour, sweetness, or is it umami?
Umami.
And people, like, well, what's umami? So
he means the spice.
So that's a particular flavor, and 43 plants have, I count them, have umami flavor. The popcorn I made tonight has umami flavor in it. It has 3. It has black salt, it has nutritional yeast, and it has MSG, monosodium glutamate, which is not an evil product. That was a bias against Chinese people in our culture. There's no problems. It's often taught, if you buy processed food that's in a package, you'll see natural ingredients. Usually, that's one of the natural ingredients. So that's the flavor we're after, and that's what's in meat, which is often why people have a hard time leaving cheese behind when they give up meat. Because that cheese is one of those foods that has a high amount of umami flavor. Anyways, that's a separate, not Christian, but food, and I would catch them out on it. You go, you don't actually love the flavor of meat, because if I removed the umami flavor, you wouldn't eat it. If I removed
Any other predator in the world doesn't. I don't believe when a shark eats a seal or eats a human that a shark has done anything morally wrong. I don't believe the shark needs to be reprimanded. I don't believe the shark is evil. So like any meat-eating creature on Earth, I don't feel sad for the prey that I consume. And I don't know why I should.
So, how would you respond to somebody bringing in lions, though?
Do you want to hear mine?
Yeah, we're not natural predators. We raise them, we selectively breed them into existence. We don't prey it in the wild on them.
Yeah, I don't think using the word prey is
Yeah,
really
Gary
accurate.
Yourofsky used to say something kind of good about, like, you can't take a single action that a carnivore does without acting out the rest, because when lions greet each other, they sniff each other's assholes. But you don't do that when you greet one of your fellow friends. So you can't. Well, just sometimes. But when but you can't just take a singular thing that an animal does without completing the rest.
But you also physically, you're not going to go tear open an animal and
With
eat
your
it
claws
raw.
and your fangs.
Right,
And,
you're just never going to be able to do that as a human.
Yep.
Yeah, and then eat it
we
raw.
live in a
and
modern
nuggets it.
world. We don't live in like hillbilly country hills with lions and tigers. I mean, 90% of the world is in a metropolitan area.
Right.
Yeah, but how many of us can go kill like a horse or something, and then just start eating all the parts raw right now and not get sick at all?
And
Like,
kill it with your teeth in your hands.
yeah, like, dude, no, it's not the same thing. We're not part of that animal kingdom.
Yeah.
We don't have the tools in our bodies to do what these other predators do.
Then there would be the tools though.
Like what I mean by tools is like the claws and the
No, I know what you mean, but they don't see it this way. When you have arguments with people like that, they think that the tools is part of the evolution of
Yeah,
man.
our brain allowed us to create tools so that we could do these things.
Yeah.
That's the domain
But then you're
part.
not a lion.
You have the
You're not
body
a
part.
lion.
So, yeah.
So the
They don't
typical way that we respond is to make them wrong. And
What you all just did, you all could have proved him wrong. But he gave me a boundary when he said he's an Orthodox Christian that he has to adhere to. When he said he's a Christian, he said, I believe everything that's in this book. This is what I base right and wrong on. Not my personal feelings, which he turned into later on. But when he told me that, I could say, all right, so you believe that God gave you dominion, as he said earlier in the video. You believe you're made in God's image. Why are you lowering yourself to that of an animal? You see what I just did? I used his parameters. I used what he swore to when he said he's an Orthodox Christian. I didn't tell him he can't, we're not equipped for it. I didn't give him any of that stuff because we've all tried that, and a lot of times it goes in one ear and out the other. But I'm using his belief in God with the words that are in this book to fight him. So it's like he's got to go.
So if somebody says like, I believe in God or I follow the Bible or whatever, should we respond with like, do you follow it fully, or like, do you follow everything about it, or are you just picking and choosing a couple items out of it, which now makes you not even,
or fits their narrative? Right?
Yeah, like fits their narrative. Are you not a Christian now if you don't truly follow it per se, like to a T?
like I think you should cover what we discussed about, not this, but about so the Bible has two parts. I don't know. Does anybody not really know about the Bible?
Before we get to that direction,
Yes.
like specifically what just happened is like back to what Stephen was saying. In the beginning, he said, "I'm an Orthodox Christian. That's my moral direction."
That's my go-to.
Yeah, and then he said, "I don't feel
Yeah.
bad about killing animals." But it's like, why does that even matter? Because the reason that you're doing something is based on the book. How you feel about it shouldn't even be relevant.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So you need to submit. If you're a Christian, you are submitting your will to Christ. All right. Not my will, but yours, Lord. That's what it says in the Bible. So it's not. I can walk into here and I say I feel this way, but I'm still going to do it God's way because I committed my life to Jesus. All right. Even though I want revenge, I'm going to forgive. Even though I want to steal, I'm not going to. Might from you though. But you cook so good. He's not living up to that boundary that he gave me at the beginning, and I would keep hammering on it again only because he says he's an Orthodox Christian.
Yeah.
If not, he's giving you some good arguments on the other side of it.
So, going back to the word prudence, was more like you control yourself and you make reasoning decisions. You're not based on instinct. So Jesus was a person that wasn't like, I don't know, I took some drugs because I don't know, it was there at the party. No, you have prudence. So this guy's saying, screw the prudence and just go with my feelings. And I would go back to, so is that a behavior? Jesus justified his behavior just based on, I don't know, I just kind of, who cares about the environment? Who cares about the workers in the factories? Who cares? Just, it just tastes good. It's just for me, personal pleasure. So what I haven't seen done here is to kick into Socratic mode, which is to get more information out of him. So when you say lions, do you use any other carnivores to justify your behavior? Like to use a rat. And you can pull out because he's cherry picking the one animal that we admire. So what would be some carnivores that people would be like, well, you can compare, there's plenty of carnivores to compare yourself to.
What are those?
Like a dung beetle.
What's
What
the
about
birds
a dung
that
beetle?
take
Vultures.
vultures? Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, vultures, right? So what are some good ones?
Possum, raccoon,
That would be disgusting. That would be like,
Yeah, possum. would be
worm,
pretty
some sort of
gross.
insect.
Maggots.
Maggots are carnivores. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good, very
Maggots are the
good.
cleaners of their.
See? Okay, so what do we have? We have vultures, we have maggots.
Snake.
Dung beetle.
I don't know.
Snakes are kind of considered,
Pig?
except for the first chapter of the Bible.
What about that plant that captures flies?
Yeah. Joe, it's a carnivore, Venus flytrap. Very good. right? So if we pull out, so why are you, it seems like you're just cherry picking a revered animal and that you want to steal its valor. That, you know, why aren't you choosing rats or other types of animals? So also these animals are basing their behavior on instinct. Are you saying that you're more like Jesus and have prudence? Or you're more instinctual, you just go based off of gut feelings? You just go off of what, you know, your performance, your macho cosplay stuff.
Like Cain or Abel.
The what?
Like Cain or Abel.
Like, there you go. It can't, does anybody, yeah, so describe, not everybody here has that background, I do, but I was a former Christian, so it just, you know, wasn't born with me.
How's that make you feel?
Actually, I'm a born again agnostic, so.
Also,
What's
the
the
animal
story?
behind him is an herbivore.
Nice call.
catch. Yeah, and actually, I just realized this the other day, pigs are omnivores, but we feed them a vegetarian diet. The ones that people eat. So why aren't we feeding them animals? They're omnivores. I mean, some places do. They do feed them other dead pigs and stuff, so, yeah.
Why? You raise your hand like when?
Oh, but the reason we don't feed pigs other animals is why?
Because the humans want it.
No,
It's cheaper.
because of the maggots, the flies,
Yeah,
the disease, all of that to have to manage.
Yeah.
Not even the factory farms want to deal with meat because of all the zoonotic diseases, all of that mess. So yeah. Sorry.
I was gonna say, with my own experience in history, unfortunately, it's hard for me to not get petty in certain situations. So that's me. But in that sort of situation, you know, we always bring up like dogs versus cats, blah blah blah. I grew up in Florida. Alligators are everywhere. People didn't know that. People go walking with their dogs next to ponds that have alligators. So unfortunately, I've grown up with certain stories of, oh, like so-and-so was like walking their dog and it was like a little chihuahua and an alligator like showed up and ate the dog. And that's horrible. We all feel sad. Most people are going to feel sad when someone like shares that story to me. And of course, like I'm sad for the dog, but like, and it sounds awful, but I kind of like throw it back at them. I'm just like, well, you know, that alligator was really hungry, like circle of life. He saw that opportunity. I know that's probably not the best response for it, but like, because people are always like, oh, but like in China or in other countries they eat dogs, and I'm just like, well, you know, it was a bite-sized meal for that alligator. I'm not going to be upset at the alligator. Let's not hurt the alligator. It was a resource.
Yeah.
And again, I would never put it on in that situation.
Later on, because Tristan actually has a foundation for dogs, like stray dogs and all that. So this would be an excellent, because later on he'll say, man-made dogs and all that. And it said, so at that point, I would go into his connection and feelings with dogs. So he has an in for me that I can expand. He has a connection, he has emotions, he has that for dogs. And I can grow that and have him express the inner soft side that he's hiding behind this outer shell. And so, what would you do if, because unfortunately, nothing to do with fortune, but Joey didn't really have good responses for that. So that would be a good.
Another just a short personal example is like in my own family, unfortunately. In Florida, they would let the cats outside. I know everyone's like, oh, cats shouldn't be outside. I agree with that. I wouldn't let a cat be outside. There's coyotes in Vegas, there's coyotes there. There's been postings online, don't let your cats outside, there's coyotes. I argued with my parents prior to this happening, don't let our cats outside. My friend's cat had their cat killed, and I told them this in the same neighborhood. I was like, oh, just like a few blocks away where I went to elementary school, a cat got killed. Then our cat, after sharing my whole spiel on that, our own cat was like killed by a coyote, and of course, like, they're mad at the coyote, I'm mad at them. I'm like, the coyote's just doing for them what's instinctual. You're mad at me for being mad at you for eating meat, but you're upset at the coyote doing what you're saying is natural for you to do. Why are you being upset at what's natural for them? Anyway, like my own pettiness kind of like gives it back to people.
Oh, yeah, I don't see a problem.
There was one good outreach in according to what you said. Someone told me that she went vegan in San Diego. She was going with the dogs for a walk. She was a dog walker or whatever, and on the beach. and someone walked on the beach with a leash with a goat. And they were walking together, and she looked at the dogs, and she looked at the goat, and she said, really, what's the difference? He's walking with a leash with the goat.
Yeah.
And she became big in the same day.
Oh,
She
that's
told me
wow.
just by herself like that, and she never thought about it, nothing. So that would be a good outreach, you know, if we have people volunteering to go on the beach with sanctuary animals, you know.
Walk down Fremont Street.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
you
With a
know.
cow.
It's a good outreach.
I've always wanted a pet pig, throw a leash on him, take him to the dog park.
Yeah.
Bye,
Normalize,
Maria. Thanks for the cake.
normalize doggy slash ladies dog parks.
You know what's weird about that though? If you brought like a pig to a dog
Maria
park,
has to
not
go.
one person would
Thank
be like,
you.
"Thank you,"
Thank you.
or not.
So,
4
the-
a.m. flight the next
The
day.
tactic that, the fallacy that Tristan is using is called a false equivalency. So there's not an equivalence of us to lions, and then I may dig into why does he see them as similar, and I would point out all the differences. And point out are we, Venus flytrap, or maybe not the Venus flytrap because it's a plant, but what was it, vultures?
Maggot.
Maggots. Maggots are carnivores.
Maggots are good one.
Vultures, rats. Why isn't he comparing himself to that? And what is it about them that has them, which is different than what we do? When the hunting argument comes up, the lion is only catching the weak. When we hunt, as a society, not we, myself, they're generally cherry picking the best deer or pig or whatever. They're actually the reverse of what they say they are, which is, this is natural. They go, there's nothing natural about the lion having a weapon that it, I can't run that fast, so I have something that catches it, and I'm going to pick out the prime meat. No, it's not what happens at all. So that's very deceptive.
Yeah, and a lion doesn't get its meat from a grocery store shrink wrapped.
That's usually what I say. They don't have supermarkets, they don't have
this whole time,
refrigerators, so they don't have the choice when we...
Right, right. And they focus a lot on the canine teeth. I don't want to get into that, but the molars of a feline are sharp. If you ever stick your hand in a cat's mouth, you'll feel the molars are sharp. They're not flat like ours. And
Carnivores don't chew. They tear and they swallow.
Yeah, and I tell people, I said, I'll give you $100 right now. Tear through it. I give you permission. I'll write it. I'll do it. You tear through it with your big freaking canines. Go for it.
Yeah.
We'll videotape it right here.
Or tear through this apple. That's what our teeth are made for.
Yeah, yeah. I used the 5-year-old argument. I said, you give a 5-year-old a rabbit and an apple, what does it do? Obviously, it rips the head off of the rabbit and sucks the blood out. I mean, because we're naturally carnivores, right? And people are disgusted by that. They're like, so what happened?
I mean, if he was a carnivore, he wouldn't have a dog rescue or whatever. Like, right? Wouldn't you eat dogs?
Exactly.
you were just saying-
Exactly. Well, he gets into ownership
He does
later
get
on.
into that.
Oh.
He's not against eating dogs.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So he's an
Now,
Let's get further on to
also,
this.
also in the cultures that eat dogs, other animals are sacred.
Yep.
Like the panda or other animals. So they also have been conditioned, socialized, brainwashed into the belief.
What animals are.
Yeah. What's in the in group and what's in the out group. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we can unpack that for sure. I mean,
Just a pause. I cut it off before that. So
K is one.
Yeah, I know that he hemmed and hawed. Well, we could I'm like, Joey, this isn't Joey.
Like it was written in the Bible, basically, or written in the Word of God that God gave permission to eat certain animals and not others. No, I mean that is in the Bible. I'm just saying, how would you counter that argument? Because people don't like to go against people's religious hardlines. And this isn't a religious hardline. I just want to know what you believe, but I want to know what you believe, Tristan, because there's a lot of people with different beliefs out there. But I want to know because I'm really interested in because I've been following you, I've been watching, and maybe I don't know if you've been watching anything that I talk about or whatever. But I've been watching a little bit about you. You do care.
I saw you on
You do
Piers
care. Yeah, Piers Morgan pretends like he doesn't care. Like he cares, thinks he cares about bees and all that sort of shit. He doesn't. He just
No one cares about
makes
bees.
stuff I mean, no one cares about bees.
Does anyone not know who Pierce Morgan
I
is?
fucking hate him. Horrible.
Doesn't everybody?
I found all his 12 videos already and I can't believe he has so fucking many. He's got like 15 videos bashing vegans.
Oh, he's got more than
And
that.
then he'll just like eat a hamburger in front of them, like, oh, it's my right to eat a McDonald's.
So everybody knows who Pierce Morgan is.
Oh.
He's done his job.
Bees. I'll get out the bees.
Yeah, I don't care about bees, and I'm not going to pretend that I do care about bees, because yeah, that would be a bit stupid if I sat here and said, oh, I care so much about bees, how can you eat this food, that kills bees, etc. I don't care about bees, but I don't care about the other animals I eat either.
Okay. So because
you said I do care.
I said you do care about many other issues. That's what I said. You do care about many other issues.
Indeed,
and you
I do.
care about human beings, and you care about other animals. And so you're not just a heartless person who lacks empathy and doesn't give a shit about anything. Because I used to be around people like that. I used to be around true, cold psychopaths, like in the game world, and that they did not care about anything. There was a couple of them, and you just knew they don't care.
Yes.
You've probably been around them too.
Well, I mean, I've seen
that type of person.
No, and I care very deeply about humanity and other people. But I don't think that extends to the animal kingdom.
You do? Well, I don't know why you would give a bunch of money to a dog charity if you didn't care about non-human animals.
I love dogs, but if you wanted to eat your dog, I would not have a problem with you eating your dog.
Would you?
That's what I usually would say.
Yeah, I would say like, would you care if someone chose to eat their mother?
So part of the challenge in using human examples is he's going to throw it back with, well, see, yeah, I care about humans.
Yeah, I mean, most people that we're dealing with at the Cube aren't coming back with, I wouldn't care if you ate your dog, though. Like, he's a little bit more of an extremist as far as his thinking. When we're at the Cube, we're dealing with 5-year-old children with, they're like a deer in headlights. They don't know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
This guy does his homework and he's got some points or whatever.
Yeah.
So, an example of that's going to be like harder for us to know what to respond with, because we never really hear that. Nobody at the Cube is saying, well, I wouldn't care if you ate your dog. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I've heard.
Yeah, I mean...
Well, I would say, so if I brought my dog here, right now, put him out on the table right here, and I just like chopped his head off right in front of you, and I took his entrails, pulled his intestines out, and I started taking nibbles off. You'd be totally fine with that. This dog,
and they
I
will
let
tell
you
you
pet.
No,
He'll say yes.
he goes later on in this video, Joey says, if I was sticking a hot iron in a dog's eye, would you stop? He's like, it's your dog.
He goes back on ownership.
He goes, the value to him of an animal is not on the animal's intrinsic value, but on who owns it.
Okay.
I think that in these cases I would use not the person himself or herself, because I know that they can go there, you know, like to surprise me. So I would usually tell them about the environment. If you would beat up a dog right here on the street, do you think that most people would like it, would be on you or with you on this or against you?
He doesn't care.
No,
His answer would be, I don't care.
Well, if they
If you
beat him
watch
up,
this
he
video,
would
other
care.
people have made comments on it where I think he says, I don't care, like 30 times. To anything. Yeah, what was your...
Christianity aside, it makes me... most people would have their own opinion on what they think should be like a law or not a law, depending on if they are Christian or if they're atheist or whatever their beliefs are. I would probably ask him, does he think it's necessary that we even have laws in this country protecting dogs? Like, does it, like, you know, because there are going to be like Christians that watch him that like would want there to be laws protecting dogs. So then if they're listening to him, if he says, no, like there shouldn't be laws, like let people do whatever they want, like you said, it's their dog, so why should we have any laws protecting them? I feel like that would affect a lot of his viewers, and maybe he's trying to also speak in a certain way and reflection of his viewers.
Based on like him following the Bible, can you respond with like, well, what would God do? Like, what would his response to what you just said would be?
I would come back, dealing on the Christian level, I would say, in Matthew, God says He cares for every animal. He cares for every bird that falls from the tree. He cares for them so much the birds don't even plant their own seeds. God's going to feed them. In Proverbs, God said, the righteous man, not just a man, but a righteous man cares for animals. Okay, there's so many places more I could quote in Scripture where the Bible says you need to care about animals. For Him to say, I don't care, is unchristian. So when he set himself up again, that's why I keep going back to his first initial statement, I am a Christian. If you're a Christian, you can't say I don't care. You don't get that luxury. You've submitted your will to Jesus Christ. You have to care. If you do, you can do it regretfully. You can stand before God and say, I'm not going to do it, God, but nevertheless, your will be done. Remember when Jesus was on the cross, what did he say? God, if I can get out of this mess, please do, but nevertheless, God, your will be done. Yeah.
One more thing, because I don't know enough about him, nor do I really care to know enough about him. But you know, there's going to be different kinds of Christians who are either like raised and brought into it for generations of other Christians, and then there's people who come to whatever reason, some sort of awakening later in life to become Christian for XYZ reasons. But I would want to know about him, because he's Orthodox Christian, was he raised that way, or like did he become that way? Because it's also like there's vegans who are born vegan, like generations, even though that's less common, and then there's people who have that awakening to become vegan for certain justifiable reasons. I would want to know from him if he wasn't raised from generations, if he had no Christian support system, if he were to become Christian on his own, why? Because I feel like for people who
So what
have
led
that,
him to the conversion of Christianity?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, why is it justified to become Christian?
But who even knows if he's Orthodox, whatever, like he could just be
Well,
saying that to justify
exactly.
But
his...
still, I would still want to know if he was from like childhood, or like if he made a decision to be more educated about it as an adult. Like, you know, vegans, it's also a choice to become more educated as an adult or to like dismiss it entirely.
So that would be part of the Socratic questions asked in the very beginning.
Yeah.
So you say that you're a Christian, tell me more about that. Were you born into this religion? Did you decide it on your own? If you decided on your own, how did you come to that conclusion? And then he might say, well, you know, I thought Jesus was a cool guy, and okay, what's cool about him?
Yeah.
Was it that he cared, or that he was careless?
Yeah.
Was he empathetic, or was he apathetic? Did he, you know, was he involved in things? Like, I'll often use with people, so here you imagine Jesus, however you imagine him, you know, blonde hair, or curly dark hair, dark skin, whatever your model is. He's in his robes, but he's also somebody that if he saw a woman with her children struggling to carry their load, he would go, hey, let me help you with that, right?
Yeah.
He was a participant, not a, oh, well, hope you get some help with that, right? He was more interactive, and I'm not sure what the word would be. And I said, so when it came time for dinner, would he be the one that would chase down the goat, take the knife, slit its throat, get himself all bloodied, and he would be there, look the goat in the eye, that the goat trusted him? Oh, you know, come over and pet it and name it and all that. This is what the farmers do, right?
They do.
And then shift over and go, okay, so how exactly would you imagine him holding the goat while the goat is struggling for its life? And you're thinking that's very Jesus, right? You just, I mean, because you're a meat eater and you're justifying the book, and your main guy would not be somebody, oh, you know, let me know when dinner's ready, right?
I think that's why Gary Yurovsky, when he was talking about this, he mentioned and he said one very important sentence, that no religion mandates meat eating, and to take Christianity as far as I know it, I know that it's on my own religion, but Christianity, I would say Jesus one, for me, is number one, was compassionate. He wanted to show people, show the other cheek, etc., etc., because of his compassion. So the combination of compassion, and it's not mandatory, all the rest that we would learn from you about Christianity is a plus. But the main thing to start off from, I think, it's not mandatory, you don't have to do it, it's a choice you make, and Jesus was compassionate. Why don't you follow that route instead of the other one?
Yeah, he was more of a win-win mentality.
Yeah, then because you always know more than me about Christianity.
Yeah, so my thought would be, just to fight back on that, the average Christian would come back, compassion only applies to humans.
And so, but how is that, how does that line up with Jesus?
So then I would line that, this is where, I mean, unfortunately, whether you believe in God or not, it's going to be beneficial for you guys to learn a few Bible verses if you're going to fight people like me. All right? You don't have to believe it. You don't have to give up your atheism or your Buddhism or your spiritualism. You can stay whatever faith you want, but learning it is just like learning the facts of, you know...
But there's two types of chickens.
Yeah, just you're learning facts is all you're doing. But it's important to learn the scriptures that says God's compassion does apply to animals, like I mentioned with, you know, in Proverbs chapter 12, where God says the righteous man cares for his animals. Where in Matthew, God says that even if one bird falls from a tree, he knows it just like he knows you. It's all these little verses. In the Old Testament, what's more important to a Jew than the Sabbath? Not much, right? Sabbath is one of the big laws. Yet in the New Testament, Jesus says you can break the Sabbath to save an animal's life. Okay? That's how important it was. And Jesus was talking to Jews when he said that. So for them to hear this was like mind-shaking. So there's a lot of verses that show that God's compassion does apply to animals too. So if you want, if you guys want to, I can write down a few verses for you later on. I can email them all to you and all that kind of thing. But it might be,
Yes or yes?
What do you mean yes or yes?
That's my answer.
Okay, but it might be good to at least memorize. If you like, here I am spouting off Proverbs and Matthew and Galatians, and like you guys don't know what that means, just learn it. Because then you can always say it like JD does, but what about this? What does this verse mean to you? And you can propose like that. You can't
Even if it's just one word of those sentences you're gonna teach us.
Yeah.
Like in Islam, there is the sparrow thing. I don't know if you know about that. But if you're not supposed to you're supposed to spare the life even of a sparrow.
Yeah.
So God will spare you or whatever. So even one code of what you're gonna teach us, we don't have to remember everything. Just codes.
But right here, the foolish part is, he set himself up as the Christian. Joey is saying, I don't really know much about it, so Joey's probably believing everything he says. And when he says, well, the Bible makes it clear God made animals for food, well, no, he didn't. You know?
Later on, he'll quote, Tristan will quote Galatians. So, Leviticus. So in Galatians 5, does everybody know what the...
I wanted to know what you thought your conversion rate was talking to other Christians.
Oh gosh, you know what? I don't know if conversion's a way to judge it. I would say at least I'm taking some information home that they'll consider.
Impactful
to
level.
Me, I feel like I've really made, like last week, remember I showed you a video of the one guy who said he's going to go vegan right away. Remember that? That doesn't happen a lot. That's rare. But I do get quite a bit saying, I never heard that point of view about that scripture, or I never considered that verse. He goes, I'm going to go home and talk to my pastor about it. And I'm like, to me, that's huge. I'll take that as, not a win, but I'll take it as
honestly, we should have the ammo of some of your quotes and things from the Bible, because people are so hard-lined on if it's from God, then I have to believe it. But your comebacks make them think. Normally, we're talking to people that don't even think.
Which is ultimately what we're here. We're here to plant seeds.
Yeah.
More than to convert them overnight, or it's more just
I share my Instagram. I get over the last 7 years of doing Cube with y'all. I've had a handful of people come back and say I'm still vegan, so it makes me happy. But it's nothing I would brag about.
Yeah.
What about just the 10 Commandments, like thou shalt not kill? How does that relate to?
No, and my argument would be, it says thou shalt not commit murder. Okay, fine. They're automatically going to think murder only applies to humans. So what I have to do is take that word for murder, the blood guilt word, the word that's used in the Bible, and see where else it says it in the Bible. Now, David used it when he had Uriah killed. This guy, David got naked with Bathsheba. She was married to this guy named Uriah, and David sent him away to go get killed. And he said he was guilty of the same murder, of the humans. Then God used that same word in another place in Leviticus, where he said, if you kill an animal like this, it's acceptable, but if you kill it like this, it's considered murder. So that same word that David and God and, what did I just say, the way they used it, it means, can you show that murder applies to animals? Yes, but it's a whole lot of Bible stuff you have to go through to get there, which we usually don't have the time to do in Q. So I can support that murder means animals, but it's a hard sell. Plus, there are, in the 10 Commandments, there are 2 of the 10 Commandments that do involve animals. One is the Sabbath, which again is a super holy day for the Jews, when that was written, and it says you can break the Sabbath to save an animal, but also that animals were in there. Animals were required to get a day of rest also. And then the other one was covetousness, which involved animals also. So some of the 10 Commandments involve animals. I have no reason to believe that the murder one doesn't also. Does that kind of... little quick for you, I'm talking fast because I know what I'm trying to do.
It sounds like don't go there.
Yeah, I try to avoid it because, the Christian you're talking to would have to know the whole David and Bathsheba story from the Old Testament. They would have to know the 10 Commandments. They would have to know...
Level 3.
Yeah, it's you got to be this level Christian, and most of the time I'm dealing with this level. And like Nick said, I don't want to come off as a know-it-all, because then they're just going to go, I don't want to hear what you have to say. You're like beating me over the head with scripture. I try to be nicer, but sometimes if they bring it up, I have to go with them.
Yeah.
What Steve and I talked about was translating what he knows, mixed in with stuff I know, to train people in level 1. This in level 2, and he's at training, the trainer's trainer level 3. So level 1.
Isn't that Hindu?
Level 1, you don't necessarily have to memorize scripture.
That's not Christian.
That can be level 2. So in level 1, knowing that the Bible has an Old Testament and a New Testament. 1/3 of the Bible is old, and there's new, and there's a
2/3 the old.
2/3 the old. Yeah. That there's a clear distinction. So most people, when they'll quote stuff out of the Bible, they will come back to me, oh, that's Old Testament. Oh, we don't follow that anymore. These things that they're quoting about the way they treat animals is Old Testament. You can ask them, do you follow, if you're taking this one thing out of the Old Testament, does that mean that you also follow the rest of the laws in the Old Testament? And they will freak out. Because in the Old Testament it says things like, there needs to be tassels at all 4 corners of your robe. Well, where's your robe with the 4 tassels? That's Old Testament. Does that animal need to be 100% healthy? Old Testament, right there. So you want to go with rules in the Bible? Go ahead. Because I'll go all day with you in cherry picking out rules from the old Bible that you're not following at all.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the Sabbath. Do you work on the Sabbath? Do you even know what the Sabbath is? Right? And so that was old. So they're going to cherry pick out of the Old Testament. I'm happy to cherry pick out.
JD, maybe you will win the battle but lose the war.
With what?
With the people that you're talking to, because they will not change. They will not say, oh, he's right, therefore I should be vegan. You will win the discussion or the argument or the debate, but I don't know if that will actually bring them closer to their compassionate side and their veganism.
Right, but so their carnism is built on a house of cards. If I can remove one card, maybe the whole thing doesn't fall. But later on, they're going to say, I can't go back to that. I can't go back to my friends and say that because now I just got called out that I'm cherry picking out of the Old Testament. So now I've eliminated that structure that's holding up their house. Also, when you kill an animal, so at these places that you go and maybe your natural butcher and all that, where do they store the blood that gets put on the altar? So for the entire group, these laws were made for a very small group and only particular people in that small group. Right? You know this. This is what Steve taught me. I was going to have a diagram. So you imagine this is all the people on the planet, and these are the Israelites, and then specific people within that group could butcher the meat a specific way. You took the fat and you smeared it on the doorway, the pillars of the door.
And
you took the blood. The what?
The Cohens.
The Cohens, the teachers, though.
The Cohens were the ones to do
Okay.
it.
All right. That's something I have to remember. These are details.
Yeah.
I'm trying to.
What he's saying is when someone reaches into the Old Testament as verification that they can eat, that God said we could eat animals, say, all right, if you're going to take those rules, you have to take all the rules. JD just went over half a dozen of them at least. You can't just pick and choose one specific thing, and that's part of the problem when you're trying to argue veganism, is that people will take one verse. And the Bible was never written in verses and chapters. The Bible itself is 66 books. Okay, it's written by 40 different authors over a 1,500-year period. Some of the authors were murderers, some of them were doctors, some of them were tax collectors, some of them were priests, some of them were written by a whole bunch of all humans, of course. But it was written by so many different with their way of saying things. Okay, what they'll do is when the monks were studying this back in like the 1600s. They're like, this is 66 books, you know? They're like, how do we find the one section you want? They broke it up into chapter and verse. So prior to the 1600s, there was no chapter and verses, all right? So now, with chapter and verse, it makes it very easy to navigate the Bible, to find the verse you want, like when I said Proverbs chapter 12, where it says, be kind to, a righteous man's kind to his animals. It was easy for me to say, turn the book to Proverbs chapter 12. You go, found it. It wouldn't take 10 minutes. But now, today's society, Americans, anybody who has the King James English Bible is looking at that going, I can take this one verse and that's all I need to know. That isn't all you need to know, because that verse is part of a whole big other thing. And if you don't understand the whole big other thing, this will sound very confusing, which is why when he says, the Bible clearly says, I'm like, no, the Bible doesn't clearly say anything. If it did, we wouldn't have 20,000 denominations.
Yeah, so what Steve taught me was all of this stuff has context. There's other, so when they're cherry picking a particular section, and they're not including the who, what, when, where, why, and how. So was this to a particular group, these instructions, or the entire world? Was it just to particular people, only specific people within that group that were authorized to do this behavior, or was it to everybody? Also, the law in the Old Testament was you could not have meat and
milk.
I was going to see if there.
Oh, sorry. I'll go
he
back
knows. Over. You know. And milk in the same meal. So you've eaten cheeseburgers, right? So you've broken the laws. So I'm not sure why you've been able to tell yourself to break these laws, but the one that has you're going to have meat, that you're not going to break that law.
That's an Old Testament.
But I think that's like religion
right. That's Old
in general,
Testament.
because the law, you're not supposed to have dairy and meat in the same fridge, the same
That's like
utensils, the same.
Exactly. All Old Testament. Are you going to follow that? What are we going to go over here tonight?
We're going overtime.
Right.
We need to wrap this up. You're going overtime. These people are getting hungry.
I have a question.